Welcome to Let's Rap, family. Today I have an incredible guest here in Durham, and his name is Chuck Manning, Sr. He's part of Community Engagement and Economic Development Analyst for the City of Durham's Innovation Team. He's the director of the City of Durham's Welcome Home program. He's a director of Locked Up to Living Life in Company, and he's the director of Welcome Home program. Also, he's a mentor for inmates and entrepreneurs. This brother is doing a lot of the work in Durham, dealing with individuals that are just coming out of the prison system. And so right now across our country, we're dealing with defunding the police. We're dealing with decades and decades of police brutality. So Chuck, in my perception, Chuck is a prolific thought leader in Black Durham that's on the front lines, receiving brothers that are just getting out of prison and figuring out how to reconnect them to family life, to economic life, to educational life. And so I'm honored to have this brother on the show. And with that being said, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So how you? Let me ask you. Let's just start here. How you feel about what's happening right now, and what in our world is gripping you the most?
What's affecting me right now, as far as police brutality and the outcomes from it, is very personal, because I once went through the exact same thing. And now, in later years, here I am, still a young Black man, but I was younger at the time. I was racially profiled. I was pulled over. I was taken out of my vehicle. And I was basically handcuffed and maced and beaten by, I'm not gonna say Durham Police or Durham Sheriff's Department, but it was, police. It was the, policing of Durham who did that too. And now I have a chance to work for the City of Durham, which I love. I'm a native. I was born and raised here in Durham. We grew up in Court projects. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. I saw a lot of individuals in my life go away and go to prison and come back home and not have anything. I myself fell into this, school to prison pipeline, which a lot of people hear a lot about. And I came home from prison and I didn't have anything. I went to the county schools out this way. I went to the Tunings and, the northern high schools and, the outskirts of Durham, in the country, the rural area. I did attend those schools, but, I see now how it was structured to basically put me in position to go to prison. The values of young Black men, especially people of color in those schools, aren't the same values as those who are Caucasian. And it was crazy because even in middle school, I can remember I would finish my work before anyone else. Like, I was an AB student. And of course I would turn into the class clown. After I finished my work, I like to make other people laugh. But nothing detrimental to the class. And one day I had a teacher and she put her hands on me. She grabbed me by my shirt, yanked me up out of my seat, told me I was going to the office, and before I knew it, natural reaction, I swung and hit her.
Right.
From that, my first bid was at Broad Street at 11 years old. In middle school, I stayed in Broad Street for about 3 months. The only way they would allow me to go back to school was if I was to take medication, which was Ritalin at the time. And I can remember going back to school, and it was okay for me to sleep throughout the entire class and not finish any work, and they would pass me. But when I was finishing my work before everyone else, and I was joking around and becoming a class clown, that was an issue. So in hindsight, looking back to that time, it basically showed me that the systematic structure that was put in place as far as with county schools was that if you don't do any work and you stay out of the way and you keep your head down, that's fine. But if you engage and finish your work before everyone else and have spare time left over to play and joke, that's a problem. And I feel like a lot of our young black kids, they kind of describe us as ADHD and having different mental issues. That's not necessarily the point.
Right.
Sometimes it's the structure and how those classes are taught, and also who's teaching that class. Because the teacher who assaulted me and pulled me by my shirt was a Caucasian woman. And now that I think back, I really can't remember a black teacher growing up here in Durham in county schools. I can't remember having one. So it's all in the values and the way that the schools are set up that sometimes pull our young black men especially into the whole justice system and inevitably becoming incarcerated. So what do you do after that? We have a system in place that that's a big pill to swallow. But I thank God for the avenue that He's brought me through with obtaining this job, and my hat goes off to Mayor Bell. He's the one who really initiated.
Okay.
I was already doing peer support and helping guys out. I was volunteer work through my nonprofit at the Durham County Jail for years. But it wasn't until Bill Bell teamed up with Bloomberg Philanthropies and they got a grant and they formed the innovation team here in Durham. And we're currently the #1 innovation team in the world because of the work that we've done. His first initiative was to create equal opportunity and upward mobility for justice-involved residents. So when I heard that, you can imagine in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like I've never heard anyone wanting to have, wanting to allow me to have equal opportunity. Not to say all the rest of the felons and individuals who I know who have been wrongly accused to have equal opportunity and upward mobility. So they allowed the innovation team to design a program. And I was a part of that. I was someone who was directly impacted. I was someone with lived experience. I was someone who could identify with the individuals. And we had a team. I was the community engagement and economic analyst, development analyst. So basically my job was to recruit individuals to conduct interviews like we're doing right now. And that's how we gathered all the data. That's qualitative data. But then we also went in and we looked up and got numbers, which was the quantitative data, showing how within 100 days an individual is released, they usually recidivize. They return to their old behavior. So to back up a little bit, when the innovation team was brought together and we were given the task to create equal opportunity and open mobility, a light bulb went off in my head. And it was through lived experience. Just 5 years prior, I had came home from facing 318 months. That's 26 and a half years. I literally thought that I was not going to see my family, kids, anyone anymore for a crime that I didn't commit. Through the grace of God, I was able to get that charge dismissed and I came home. That's when I started my service work and going to the jail and giving guys words of encouragement, because that was once me. And I can remember when I gave up on myself when I was in there, and I didn't come out for 3 days. I didn't come out of my little room in the jail, in the pod for 3 days, because I didn't see myself getting out of there. So that's what kind of sparked my work. But through that lived experience, here I am, young black man, and I'm sitting at the table, and I get a say. I get to express exactly what I know I went through and what I know other individuals are going through. So the team was me, community, economic engagement, analyst. We had a design strategist. We had a project manager. And the design strategist that's on our team, she just so happened to have, anthropology skills.
Okay.
So she was used to doing interviews. She knew how to draw information out of people, and I learned from her. And this was a Caucasian woman.
Okay.
I learned from her. I watched her. I listened to her while she conducted interviews, and I saw where a lot of the people that I would recruit, they didn't want to open up to her.
Yeah.
She would ask certain questions, and they would shell up. And through my observation, I saw, well, they don't feel comfortable talking to this Caucasian woman about these issues.
Right.
So I said, hey, how about letting me try to conduct the interviews? And that's when everything just came together. I conducted over 50, 60 interviews with justice involved residents, and we were able to get qualitative data from those interviews that really showed how hard it is for black men, especially, and women, to reintegrate into society and become productive members of society once they come home from being incarcerated. Right. From that, we did journey maps, we did focus groups with law enforcement, with COs, with local reentry council, everyone who worked around individuals coming home from prison. We interviewed those individuals, and I was a part of that. And from that, we designed the Welcome Home program. From my personal lived experience, when I came home, I didn't have anything. I didn't have housing, I didn't have clothes, I didn't have food, I didn't have anything. And it was sheer willpower, I feel, that I possessed and God allowed me to possess at the time to make it through it. I applied to close to 100 jobs everywhere. I mean, from Lowe's to McDonald's to, anywhere. I just applied and no one would hire me because of a charge that still shows up on my record even though it was dismissed.
Wow.
What I was facing those 318 months for, that charge still shows up on my record to this day, even though it was dismissed. So an employer is gonna look at that piece of paper and he's gonna gauge that individual off of what they're reading. And then on top of that, here I am, a big, 300-pound plus black man, bald head, beard. Automatically you're thinking, he's, Muslim or whatever, and I'm not even Muslim. You see what I'm saying? So it was just like, I got the vibe when I would go into these interviews, And needless to say, everyone would turn me down. And it wasn't until I had the opportunity to go cater with my uncle at an event at Hyco Lake in Roxborough for 750 people. I was paid $350. I took 200 of those dollars and I spent it on my kids because I hadn't been able to do anything for them since I had been home. And the other $150, I borrowed a friend of mine's grill and I bought plates, spoons, forks. I went to a wholesale food guy and I bought the food and I did a plate sale. And from that, it just, took off. First day I turned $145 because I did buy a pack of cigarettes. So it was actually $145. I turned that into $750. I sold 100 plates at $7.50 a plate in Oxford Commons Shopping Center up there in the parking lot. So, and it was kind of like confirmation from God saying, okay, you don't have to go back to the old behaviors. You don't have to kick nobody door in. You don't have to beat nobody across the head. You don't have to sell anything illegal that's gonna hurt the people that surround you or hurt yourself. I got you. This is your lane. I'm giving you a catering business. And from that, I started doing plate sales every other weekend. And before I knew it, guys who I knew from the block and I knew from hustling and doing all of those things that would get me incarcerated, they started coming and like supporting. And I found myself kind of like ministering to those individuals. I know it was ministering now, but at the time I was just trying to get individuals to not put that carrot suit on again. You know what I mean? You don't have to wear browns or greens, find something that you love, something that you're good at, and turn it into a business. That's why I'm a mentor for inmates, the entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So I teach classes to other individuals who are coming home so that they will have an equal opportunity, because I saw how hard it was to apply for a job and work for someone else with my record, even though I wasn't convicted. Imagine someone who was convicted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't have to necessarily work for someone else. God gives us gifts and gives us things that we're good at, and we can utilize those things in a business sense and in an entrepreneurial sense.
Right.
So.
Chuck, that's that journey, brother. Man. Dr. Umar Johnson talks about the black man, not like black men and how they're made criminal. They're not born criminal, they're made criminal. And so you give this powerful testimony of being 11, being assaulted, dehumanized, right, at 11. And at that point that teacher grabbed you, she automatically began to criminalize you. And it sounds like, as you kind of tell your story, man, that journey towards you becoming a criminal and carrying that, and then you having to kind of work through decriminalizing yourself. Right? In the midst of coming out, not having no support, like you said, being this black man, being accused of something you didn't do, but then being able to find liberation in that for yourself. And so the beauty of what you shared, man, is that your story is one that is how we talk about getting some out the mud. What you just described is so help bring me in a little bit more when it comes to, because there's a point where it sounds like you found this measure of liberation for yourself. And you were able to then be that for another individual. So one of the things I realized in resisting white supremacy, racism in Durham, all of the criminalization of black men, is that black liberation, black power, and finding that and sharing it, right? And where I see Chuck has tremendous value, and it's you in yourself, is what God's given to you. I'm not adding to it. I'm drawing from it right now. So, but what was that like? What was that like to find that liberation piece before you even started to share it with other brothers? Like, what was that like for you to find that?
I would have to take a step back before that and speak on how it made me feel during the time when I had, been incarcerated and, came home and different things like that. It's like a scarlet letter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read the book in, I think it was high school or it might have been middle school. The Scarlet Letter tells a tale about an adulterer who committed adultery, and they had to wear the letter on their shirt. That way, everywhere that they went, they were identified as what they had done. In my case, it was as if I wore F everywhere that I went for felon. And then on top of that F, I wore B for being black. And then on top of that B, I was wearing an M for being a black man. So here I am, automatically, basically viewed from those letters that I had to wear every day. And for me, the liberating point came, it was after that first plate sale. I had a conversation with a young man who's my mentor today. He's one of my mentors. And he told me, stay your course. You know what I mean? God is opening up doors for you. And believe me, there were still thoughts in my head like, I could go, cop a ball and I could flip that to a quarter by the end of the week, and I could be up to an ounce in a month, and I could, have a big in 2 months, and then I'd be on to a 9, and half a joint, and I'm back in the game. Like, those thoughts continued to go through my head, but at the same time, it was liberating for me to stay my course, the course that he had me on. And through doing that, he basically showed me, he gave me signs. And when I say he, I'm talking about my high power. He showed me signs on, for instance, I think it was like the third or fourth time I did a plate sale. I'm out there cooking and it's hot. I mean, it's like 100 degrees and I'm standing next to a 450, 500 degree, smoker. And I got on the toboggan because the sweat, I don't want it to drip on the food and I don't want to keep on wiping my face. So I got on the toboggan, shirt, apron, and young cat that I knew from my neighborhood. He was like, he basically admitted, he was like, man, I'm tired. You know what I mean? I don't want to do this no more. And I see you up out here, you doing your plate sales. Now, mind you, this is like the third or fourth time I did a plate sale. Okay. But I really feel like people, and I would promote it on Facebook and on Instagram, and I would always post like encouraging messages and spiritual messages and stuff like that. And I think that people started to get a view of the new Chuck. You know what I mean? They knew the old Chuck with the quick temper and, quick to do something that wasn't wrong. But now they got a taste of who this new creature is. And when he was talking to me, he was being so transparent. He started talking to me like, I'm just tired of doing this. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I gotta, pay X, Y, and Z and only have this much work left. And, my mom, she strung out on the same thing that I'm selling and she stole something from me and I didn't know if I should beat her down or, it just going through his whole current state. And I can remember talking him through it and, encouraging him to do something different, do something that you like to do. and it was something that he did. Like, do he like to cut hair?
Mm.
And now today, that man is a barber and doesn't have to sell dope, and is able to help his mom in a positive way. But at the time, I didn't know that that's what was going to transpire. Yeah. I just knew that a seed had been planted in me to be that standing model of change for someone else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's when it kind of clicked, and I started going to the Durham County Jail, and we call it the assault pod. Mm-hmm. So this is the pod where you have either a $250,000, either $250,000 bond or better, or you don't have a bond at all, meaning you're not gonna get out. Okay. So it was 4C at the time, and I was in that pod. You know, I had a $500,000 bond, and no one else in that pod, everyone else, I would say no one else had a bond that was lower than that, but at the same time, you had individuals who either had a bond that was 2-3 mil, or they didn't have a bond at all, meaning they didn't have a chance to get out on bond. So I started going back to the Durham County Jail, and I was specifically, when I went, I was specifically asked to go to like 4C and visitation booth. And I had a couple of guys' names who were in there from being in there before. And I would sit down and I would just ask them, like, what do you plan on doing when you get up out of here? You know it's gonna be hard to get a job. And I'm therapeutic storytelling. That's what I call it. I'm sitting there and I'm already allowing them to see what I went through when I get out. So what are you gonna do when you get out? And how can I help you do that? So I think that's where everything really started as far as for me, and on the journey that I'm on, really wanting to have equal opportunity and upward mobility for all of my justice-involved residents. Yeah. Because a lot of them are in there for crimes that either they didn't commit or they were fabricated in some type of way. So.
Man, I appreciate that. In regards to justice, how, and I'm thinking of you speaking and you transitioning, and you mentioned it, the guy coming up to you saying he's tired, and you described a point where you knew I could have had an opportunity to take a ball and move like that, right? And you had but bring our listeners and bring people that don't understand the dynamics when it comes to the damage that you were doing to the black community and the damage that brother, when he came up and said he was tired, or you said, another brother said, hey, look, my mom's on some of the stuff I'm selling. Bring us in that psychology. You just talked about storytelling, because I know when it comes to how it's perceived, the black community hurts we haven't had justice.
Right.
We haven't had justice, right? We've been dehumanized. And so when it comes to that experience between each other, how we make money, how we survive, right? Mm-hmm. And the layers of compromise, help folks and myself to understand what that transition is like. Because I think we have, and this is where I'll say, I feel like the impression is very binary, right? Where it's like this black man, you're destroying your own community, you're burning your own community, you're selling coke, you're selling this rock to your own people. You can't give a F about your people, right? And then on the other side, you have someone that might come across as a PhD, right? Cornell West, someone that's far removed, right? You might be this talented academic elite. And so you got an opinion, right? But you have these extremes. Right. And so it feels like you being educated, being connected to both sides, are able to journey through that story. Help us understand that more. And that transition for a black man.
Everybody who sells drugs in the black community isn't there doing it intentionally to hurt their community. A lot of times the individuals, and I can speak for myself, when I was doing it, I would spread the love, meaning that yes, I'm getting this money in an illegal way, and what I'm selling is harming individuals, but the money that I do receive is not only going to help my family, is going to help my community in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have cookouts.
Mm-hmm.
I would, have Easter egg hunts. When I was growing up, we didn't have any of those things. And, for me growing up and at 12, 13 years old, not having a father figure in the house, you kind of look towards those who are in your communities, in your community, especially for me in my community, who would take on that father figure and who would say, here go $2, go down to, Miss Pataway house and get you some snacks because that was the candy lady. You know what I mean? Get you some chips or whatever. But what they were doing to make that money, that same $2 that they gave me, was illegal. Mm-hmm. It may have been selling crack or selling, heroin or whatever. Now, how they were getting their money wasn't necessarily, and it isn't a good thing, but the distribution of the money once it comes in and how that can help even younger individuals is sometimes a blessing, especially to someone like myself, youngest of 4 boys, like I said before, no father figure. And on a lot of days, I can remember just having boxed mac and cheese for dinner. You know what I mean? I can remember standing in the line at the old Head Start over on the south side with my mom in the auditorium with no AC in the summer. It's 100+ degrees. We sweating bullets, and we stand in this line waiting for a block of cheese. You know what I mean? She's trying to do what she can to feed her 4 boys, and when you're raised that way, and then you have a entrepreneurial I guess I'd say a chance to make funds for your family, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna take it, even though it's not legal. So that entrepreneurial chance that a lot of these young men are being presented with are the drug trade. But let's be honest about it. How are they getting here? And it's just like the gun manufacturers. You see what I'm saying? Probably 5 houses down from where we are right now on the left-hand side, it's a Hell's Angels.
Talk about it. Yeah.
It's a Hell's Angels club. And I can remember when I was 15 riding down this same street, and they're standing out front with Confederate flags, and you know what I mean? Basically neo-Nazis right in your backyard.
Right.
So for me, we can't frown upon those who are systemically put in positions to where they have to make grown man decisions at a young man's age. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I had to make grown-up decisions at a very young age, and a lot of the times when I made those decisions, they got me in trouble. But it's the way that it was systematically set up for me to get in those troubles.
Right.
So I really don't think anyone from my neighborhood or from other neighborhoods across the United States intentionally wants to have their brother or their sister strung out on any type of drug. But at the same time, if that's the only opportunity that you're being given to support your family and bring extra income to your family, other than your mom, working 2 jobs like mine was, still going getting blocks of welfare cheese and, just barely getting by with the bills. If I have a chance to where back then we had food stamps, the paper ones, and I can remember handing my mama $100 in food stamps. And it was from selling something illegal, and they paid for it with food stamps, but I was able to give that to her, and she was able to feed us for a month almost off of $100 worth of food stamps. And she could pay all of her bills and not have to ask for assistance with those bills. You know, you tend to look at it like, well, I am helping out home, but then you can even branch out further than that, getting all those food stamps and say, hey, you know, I want to have a cookout for the neighborhood. Everybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I want Miss Pataway, I want the candy lady, everybody to come. I want everybody. And we're able to do that. And even the individuals who may have been addicted to the drugs. But what people tend to focus on is the individuals in the community that are strung on the drugs. They're not focused on the other Caucasian individuals.
That was part of your customers as well.
That was part of our customers. That was the main focus of our customers, because the same thing that I could sell someone from my neighborhood who I knew for $20, I could turn around and sell it to someone that's Caucasian or not from this neighborhood, not from this community, for $60, $70.
Okay.
So
that's missed.
Yeah. So that's always that's a part that's going to always be left out.
Okay.
You know, the majority of the scores and sales that come through, they're not necessarily from our community anyway.
That's really important.
You know, they're from another community. They just know that there's somewhere that they can get their drugs of choice.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Now I think that matters when it comes to white supremacy and the way that we have the way that we've kind of created the power structures. Mm-hmm. And so we talk about you unpack resiliency, which to me, nowhere in the world. And this is me growing up, realizing like way back in my community where I grew up, and I'm an Army kid, so my dad's from West Africa. My mother is from Michigan. She's a white woman, and so I was on Army bases a lot. And so it wasn't until I was about 12 or 13 I spent most of my childhood in Germany, And so when I got off the base, my dad and mom divorced, and I started connecting with the brothers. The barbershop owners, and I started to make that transition. Like in my mind, again, I didn't grow up in the hood, but in my mind, watching, Menace to Society or any of the John Singleton movies in Germany. Right, I'm in Germany on Army base, so really distant. Right, getting Dre's Chronic right when I'm 6 or whatever. So I got a lot of distance from the hood at that point. But once I was like 11, 12, 13, I got back like 9 or 10. And I started getting my hair cut at the shops. For me, I early on had tremendous admiration for brothers with that energy, that entrepreneurial, that I would call genius. That was mind-boggling to me, man. So I feel like cats that I know own shops that were moving this and funding this and might have been, even like you said, moving in the underground in a way. I watched that. I watched guys going, this guy's gone, he's just doing 5 years, he got out, and so and so. And so as I watched and I connected, for me personally, I learned to admire individuals that, like in '98, when Master P fucked up the whole music industry by putting out 30 albums from the streets, produced, published, packaged, and promoted.
By a black man.
To me, boom. I think for me at that age, I'm 14, that was an enlightenment for me, because I realized that energy, that juice, that genius, I admired. And so I was always, for me, even as a mixed kid, always having to kind of dismantle those like, oh, that's criminal, pull your pants, they hood, And so all of that energy, I always would have to defend, like, yo, these cats, like. So for me, I always pulled a lot of value from that, but I knew growing up in a world that was white, a world that was African, a world that was black, that there was a lot of dehumanizing.
Oh yeah.
But now, again, I'm 35, so 15 years later, I'm still like, that independence, that liberation that I saw P talk when everyone called Dre a thug, Snoop a thug, P a thug, Caz a thug. Those guys are the most prolific black thought leaders now that I'm saying, you want to do business, that's where we learn independence. And these were guys that were funding studios with dope money, right? And so I think, and that's my upbringing, but I'm aware of the value is incredible. Like you're talking about like Harvard business level value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I come to this conversation like, yo, there's a huge shortage of cats like pulling up chairs to go, bro, teach me. And so I think for me, hearing you take us through that, when it comes to black economics, and when we talk about buying black, we talk about the value. Again, the white man's ice is not colder than the black man's. So that got to be said, but then you describe value for your plates. You describe people seeing it and recognizing it. What does that mean in Black Durham for us to experience sharing value with one another when it comes to black economics? Like, how do we do black economics in Durham in a way that gives us, that decentralizes power? Because what you described with your plates is like you was taking the power back, right? And you saw immediately that you had the ability to produce, to share, to get value, and to be honored. Like you had cats in your hood that was coming up and giving you honor. And so I think there's something powerful about black business beyond just, oh, let me get a degree to get a job in the park or at Cisco or Google and leave my fucking community. No, it's different when you're like, no, I got a skill, a trade, and I'm bringing, so you were bringing the cats on your block with you when you were doing, like you said, what should have been done.
Right.
And so you you were already doing it. And so I think I want to make sure for our viewers that Chuck, he was doing that before. Right. And so who you were when you got up was who you was on the front side. And so I think it's important to understand we got to bring them fucking walls down. Right. Because it isn't like this version. No, you were still sharing. You were still. So I think, what does that mean to deal with black economics in our city that gives value and that takes back power?
Okay.
Help us with that.
Yeah, so for me, I think first and foremost, us as black people in general, especially enlightened black individuals. Not saying that anyone isn't enlightened, but there are those who are enlightened, to watch out for the culture vultures. And protect your IP, protect your intellectual property. And for instance, with my catering and me cooking, I've had individuals approach me, oh man, what did you do to that chicken? I've never tasted anything like it. But I use certain woods and I use certain ingredients and I allow, and I got some chicken right now marinating for my stepdaughter's graduation. And when I get back to the house, I'm gonna throw it on the smoker, but that's my IP. That's my intellectual property. And I've had white people, I've had black people approach me like, man, just tell me a secret. Like, what is it? What do you put in it? And I refuse to do that. And the reason why is because that's my personal intellectual property. Same way with the innovation team.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That's through the city of Durham. I am grateful. I remember I have two uncles that work for the city. One of them was a garbage man, and one of them worked on the road crew. You know, both of them were able to retire from the city, you know, with pensions, and I remember how proud and, you know, they were when they had on their City of Durham name tag. And I remember as a young boy, I was like, man, I would love to do what my Uncle Steve and my Uncle Diva is doing. You know what I mean? I would love to have that chance. Fast forward, now here I am working for the city, and it's not for me to lift up garbage cans because I'm a big guy, or move furniture, or lay asphalt. It's for my mind. It's for my intellectual property. See, I invested into the city of Durham parts of my intellectual property in order to structure a program that would be sufficient and would be recognized worldwide. Now, I don't necessarily get credit for that.
Right.
The city of Durham gets credit.
Right.
But that also opened my eyes up to, hey, you need your own nonprofit.
Right.
Because if you have all these great ideas and these great formats of how programs should be ran,
Yeah.
I really didn't need their help.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
All they're doing is interviewing individuals so that they can gain more knowledge, and then they're going to take that, transcribe it, then break it down. They're going to create. They're going to create insights. Then they're going to create super insights. Then they're going to create a prototype, and then they're going to test that prototype to see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're going to do. All the IP, all the intellectual property came from somebody of color.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? And I saw that early on when I was working.
Okay.
That a lot of the things that I thought of and I wanted to create in creating various programs like the transitional job program. Back in the 90s, I remember when they had a second chance program for guys who were coming home from prison, right?
Okay.
But they stopped it. So now we structured a new transitional job program where it's just like the second chance program, but these individuals get to work for 6 months and then they'll transition into a permanent position with the city.
Right.
Now that may be in street maintenance, that may be in solid waste, that may be in waterworks, that may be in transportation, that may be in any one of the, areas that the city has positions, but at the same time, you're giving someone another chance. That didn't come about until, individuals like myself and other individuals that we interviewed thought back to the 90s and said, hey, why don't y'all do this anymore?
Okay.
So now they take that idea and they say, okay, we're going to do it again.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, we as black individuals, we are a different breed of people. We are the originators of a whole lot of culture that has been mimicked and has been duplicated and used over the years. Look at Friends. You remember the television show Friends?
Yeah.
That's just a knockoff Living Single.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Living Single came out before Friends.
Oh, yeah.
And Living Single is the exact same thing that Friends is. But do you remember anybody black? In name one episode where somebody black was in Friends? I'll wait. See, it's about, we have culture vultures and we have individuals who will take IP and make it their own, and they profit off of it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
you're saying that those points are moments where we have to figure out our own ownership in our IP
and how we can put it together as ours.
As ours, yes.
As ours.
I'm tracking.
Like, as far as like I was saying with my nonprofit, I've been doing peer support work, and I'm doing it from. It's God's work. It's from the heart. Like, I would do this for free. What I'm doing right now, I would literally do this every day, help guys out for free if I did not have responsibilities and I didn't have to take care of myself. And it's something that I love. I love seeing that light bulb go off in some of these guys' head. Like, I don't have to do that anymore. I can do something different. I know that there's injustice and there's a systematic, system that's placed in front of me, but I can still do what I can to make sure that I don't have to put on that carrot suit again. I love to see that light just go off in someone's head and see them pursue it. You know what I mean? And that's really what sparked me to say, you know what? I love my job, working with the city. I love the connections that I've made and everything else, but in order for me to have true ownership of what I'm doing, I have to do something separate for myself from the city or the county of Durham. And that's where my nonprofit really just started.
How long have you been starting?
I've been, my nonprofit has been going for about 6 years now, and we're finally getting to a place where we have a lot of individuals here in North Carolina that are starting to appreciate the type of work, the peer support work, and that's from state level, and from city and county level, along with other individuals who are in community, grassroots, you know what I mean, who just appreciate the work being done. So, and some religious, like the Religious Coalition for Nonviolent Durham. That's a wonderful group of individuals who really support my nonprofit, Locked Up to Living Life. If it had not been for individuals like the Religious Coalition and individuals like the local reentry council with Demetrius Lynn, or individuals like the city of Durham with Bertha Johnson and Monica and Ryan Smith, those individuals in the budget department who see the importance of the work and want that put into the budget of the city and for the county, then none of this would be possible. But it's about the work and really, really wanting better for your fellow brothers and sisters. So that I mean, once you do the work and once you continue to do the work and you're true about the work that you're doing, individuals tend to invest, and people tend to see your vision. You know, my vision personally is I am for justice reform. I believe in it. I think that prisons should be abolished. But at the same time, until that happens and until we're able to do it, I have to fight a good fight on the back end. You know what I mean? Until that is changed and things are continuing to run the way that they're running now, I have to be in position to help my brothers and sisters who are returning to Durham.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Have a fighting chance to get back into society. So I invest my personal time in, you know, giving them a welcome home box, which has a couple weeks of non-perishable food items. It has a couple months worth of toiletries. You get a gift card to get a button-down shirt, slacks for a job interview. You get a cell phone, a smartphone. Imagine a guy who's been gone for 16 years, like our first participant, Reggie. And, you know, I hand him the phone. I've activated, I've created him an email address. I've done all that. And he looking at it like he's scared to even touch it. But also investing time to sit down and show him how to use it. Now, here it is, a year and a half later, he's been home after 16 years. He can do everything you ask on that same cell phone. You know what I mean? So, and he can contact who he wants. He can go on Google, look up, find out information. You know what I mean? So it's a rewarding feeling when you're able to give back and do those things for an individual who normally, like when I came home, didn't have anything. Didn't have nothing. I mean, moms didn't even want me to come to the house. You see what I'm saying? Because some people hold you under the same light that you were prior to you going away. So now, even though you're coming home and you're saying to yourself, I want to do something different, I need assistance in doing it, those who know you from back then aren't necessarily going to invest in you right off the bat until you show them that I'm a different person and I want to do something different. Now that isn't right, but at the same time, you have to understand that. I mean, I know I've burned a lot of bridges, you know, and some of them I burnt twice. You know what I mean? So, but you know, so I can't hold that against anyone. But I understand that some of these individuals who coming home are actually sincere in wanting to do something different. You know, and why not assist them?
Why not? Right. And we should deeply feel responsible as Black Durham people that are outside. And again, I wanna wrap up. We gotta do a part two. Let me just say
Yeah, that's fine.
we got
That's
to,
fine.
because I feel like
I'm here for it.
I feel like there's a perspective of Durham history that, when it comes even from Black Wall Street up, that is necessary. We got to get into issues around the gun violence
Mm-hmm.
and some of the how we create, like there's these monsters in the hood that are killing our people, right? And those flashpoints, right? Again, it goes back to how we see black men in our spaces. Again, I think you're someone that's qualified to speak to that. Oftentimes when you think about these, let's deal with this violence campaign, I'm tracking, I'm picking up, there's a lot of headhunting that happens that is disconnected from the streets, from what's really happening, right? Even when it talks about snitching, right? And the layers that, so we gotta get into all that, man. And I think it's valuable, again, because this is a conversation that's gotta cross the boundaries for Black Durham to unite in ways that we haven't. But I will ask one more question to close.
Okay.
When it comes to the mental health, again, this might go into dealing with social workers, or when it comes to mental health and social workers and how they interact with, and I mean, it could go either way. They could see you as a gatekeeper, or you could see them as a gatekeeper of resources. Take us into that. And maybe it's what social workers should know, or what your experience is, or how to navigate the tension with social workers, and maybe what the state gives them as a perceived operating way, and then also you trying to say, hey, look, here's another way. Because I know oftentimes when someone gets a degree, right, and they get the letters behind their name, right, you know that. I ain't got to tell you that.
I call it a little piece of paper.
Okay. So let's get into that. When they get that, close us with this on this thought. When someone get that little piece of paper, man, I know some of this goes into mental health in the way that we're not seeing, right, in the Black community, but what's that interaction like? And how can it improve?
Yeah, so first and foremost, let me say, nothing can compare with lived experience. Until you have some type of lived experience, you don't qualify in so many words. But I will say that education is necessary.
Absolutely.
For me, in understanding mental health, I have been through depression before. I still have anxiety from time to time. In the Black community, mental health is frowned upon. It's when you start talking about it, oh, I'm not crazy. People jump to the defense, or, oh, they're not crazy. They just need to pray about it. Go take it to Jesus. Take it to the altar. And that's all well and good. But we have to understand that we suffer from so many things as Black people, like post-traumatic slave disorder. They mated us like cattle, cousins with aunts and daughters with uncles, and it's in our DNA to have mental issues. And for me, it's about addressing those issues and having some type of outlet, be it a therapist, be it, exercise, meditation, there's so many different things that you could, get those things out, and methods that you could use. But if necessary, if you are seeing people or hearing voices, there are medications out there that can help. Not saying that that's the solution, but I think that the Black community has to take steps towards strengthening our mental health as Black people, and really addressing it. Because a lot of times individuals aren't willing to address the issues that are going on. And this is one thing that I do with individuals who come home, with the individuals I go visit. I speak on mental health. and I'm an advocate for mental health.
Beautiful. Okay.
Because I have the lived experience in going through those depressing points in my life and not really understanding why my actions were the way that they were. A lot of 9 times out of 10 it was because of the mental state that I was in at the time. And when you're having an episode or you're in a bad spot mentally, you're going to make poor decisions. And a lot of people really don't understand that either. Like when you're depressed, or you've had something traumatic to happen to you, your outlook on life is totally, like right now I can walk down the sidewalk in my neighborhood and I can just walk down the sidewalk and just look forward and walk around the block and come back home. When I was 16, 17, 18 years old, there were so many drive-bys that were happening in my community that I literally would be looking over my shoulder the entire time I'm walking in a whole nother direction, trying to make sure that there's not a car. My mental state at the time was that at any given moment, my life could be taken. And it still could be today, but at the same time, I don't address it, and my actions don't show that that is the case, if that makes any sense.
It does.
You know what I mean? So back then, my actions showed it. Like if I was driving through the neighborhood and I saw a young guy, and every 2 seconds he looking over his shoulder, or he looking inside of every car that passes by, the average person wouldn't understand why he's doing that. He'd be like, "Dad, that nigga knows it." No, that's not it. You know what I mean? Like, this dude is trying to protect himself and make sure that whoever's coming in this car isn't about to shoot at him. Or they might jump out and slam him because they think he's selling drugs or he has a gun on him. Could be the jump out boys. So people have to understand that that's a mental state that you're in. And when you're not living that same lifestyle, you have to address those issues at some point. So a lot of the guys who may have lived that way and before they were incarcerated, that's how they walked around their block in their neighborhood, that's how they act in public. Now it's about, reshaping it and addressing those issues, because I've had guys who come home and they're still looking over their shoulders. You know what I mean? Or like for me, it took me forever to start eating with a fork. Like even my old lady now, sometimes she'll catch me and I'll have a spoon. Eating something that I'm supposed to be eating with a fork, but it's not institutionalized, but after repetitive days of eating with a spork. It's a spoon, but it has a little fork. Yeah. So, and then it's rubber, it's not a firm plastic. It's just, I'm accustomed to doing that. When I first came home, I can remember standing at my door in the bedroom at my mom's house. This was way back when I went to prison. And I literally stood there for like 3 or 4 minutes waiting for the door to pop, not understanding I could just reach and turn it. Repetitive count time in prison, like you have to stand beside your bunk. Sometimes it's 45 minutes to an hour while one officer walks around and he counts everybody. Some people have these things that they've experienced to subject them to a certain mental state that I personally feel has to be addressed.
Yes.
And it has to be addressed in the right way. And you have to have some type of support. So going back to what you said about these case managers and individuals, you have to have someone, a peer. That's why peer support is so important. It goes across the board. It's not just for people who are incarcerated. You can also use peer support for mental health. You can also use peer support for substance disorder. You can use peer support for just social interactions inside of the neighborhood. I'm also a violence interrupter
Right.
through the Cure Violence,
Right.
and I worked for Bull City United for years. I see how having someone positive like myself in those communities where high violence and things like that are happening is beneficial to not only the individual who's caught up in that lifestyle, but also to the community at large. So we'll talk on that on our next session, more about the violence and things like that, but it all homes back to mental health.
Okay.
It all of it comes back to mental health. So
I appreciate that, Chuck.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up. I want to pick back up at that post-traumatic slave syndrome, because I feel like we got to date it, and I feel like we got to get that part of the conversation, because it'll help our viewers and those in the city understand why the way things are that they are, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be important. So again, thank you for joining us, brother. I really appreciate your sacrifice, your time, what you're doing. Thank you for our viewers for checking us out. This is Let's Rap. Peace.